Hello, everybody. This is Waldorf.
And this is Statler.
And today we're going to be talking about the topic of the week from Vince.
Yes.
Vince Venturella, to be exact. Who
is frozen on our screen. And
is frozen on screen. And figure we'll sit there and stare at this for a while.
I like how he's like pointing at us, telling us, stop talking.
Stop talking about me.
Yes, exactly.
He doesn't like that. Anyway, he brought up this topic was dealing with toxic players.
Right.
And this is really...
And I don't think he was referring to people that smell really bad, which are, unfortunately, it's too common in that board gaming hobby.
He could have been. It's
that
entirely possible.
That is a form of toxic player.
It is a form of toxic player. So let's start the little slideshow in the background so you don't have to stare at Vince the whole time.
So you don't have to feel like your dad's...
He is a nice guy.
Yes.
Because I met him up at Buckeye. And they finally, I don't think they announced the Buckeye date, but I think I was told it's not interfering with the local tournaments.
Oh, okay.
So I think I'll be able to make Buckeye again this year, which would be awesome. It's a long drive, but I like it. Anyway.
Yes.
But anyway, the topic was dealing with toxic players.
Yes.
And it's really kind of, there's two sides to that. There's dealing with toxic players in your own environment, in your local group.
On your own store, your own club.
Your own store. And then there's toxic players in a tournament.
Yes.
The toxic players in a tournament, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do about it. I mean, if I run into a guy who's, I played in a lot of tournaments. I've run into that guy who I would rather never play again. He used the term toxic. There's a lot of different things in a tournament that can. I won't use toxic, unpleasant.
Yeah, well, there are different types of players or different types of people who can make, depending on your own personality too, of course, but they can make your gaming experience unpleasant.
Correct.
I used to play. I played a number of times in the GW Grand tournaments back in the day, and unfortunately, I ran into a number of those people. And I can say in almost every tournament that I've ever played in, I've run into those people, and
really,
I always get the point of that's 2.5 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back.
Yeah, it's tough.
So
there's really nothing you can, if you're in a tournament, there's really nothing you can do about it. You just play through the game.
Well, it depends on what type of person you're talking about. I mean, you have people who are the rules lawyers.
Correct.
There, you just got to have the discussion, and sometimes you're going to have to call the
judge over.
To adjudicate.
Yeah, I've had that game where it's like, look, we've had this argument. I've been right the last 3 times. Do we really need to call the judge over again?
Exactly.
And the answer was yes.
Yes.
So,
and sometimes, I was right 4 times. You got the guy that wants to do the 4 up, I'm right, 1 through 3, you're right. Correct. All the time. And so you can also decide, it really depends on how important winning the tournament is to you too.
Correct.
Right.
And I'll look at that as a different way too. If this is game 1 or 2 or whatever, it's important to me. If it's game 4 or 5 and I'm up on a high table, it's important to me.
Yes.
If it's game 4 or 5 and I'm on table 32, I'm just going to say, fine, just play it, dice it off, let's keep moving.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call a judge down to table 4, but I will, after the game, find a judge, find the rule, and point it out to him so that next tournament, hopefully he won't bother somebody else with it.
Yeah, and then I said, then you have, that's the rules lawyer guy. Then you have the argumentative guy who doesn't really know the rules but pretends like he does.
Yeah. That's kind of still arguing the rules.
Yes.
Whether he knows them or not.
Right. Similar response there.
Right.
Then you may have the slow play guy who's just like measuring everything and you're going to get maybe 3 turns done if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Which in a tournament is death. I mean, in private time, that's not such a big deal.
Depending on your army, it can be death. Even in private time, it's like, I really didn't want to dedicate 4 or 5 hours to this game.
Right.
Then, you have those two. And then you have the guys who just, in generally, make the game unpleasant.
Yes.
They're winning or they're losing. Especially, a lot of times you'll see it. I've seen this more often than any other type is they're losing the game and they get down. They don't care.
Right.
They just kind of toss the dice onto the
Correct.
table.
Or they get angry.
Even without even getting angry,
Yeah.
they'll just be resigned.
Exactly.
They're no longer participating in the game.
Correct.
You're kind of left pulling off their casualties for them, doing,
Yes.
because they're not even caring enough to do that.
Right.
So that's, to me, that's one of the biggest sins for a gamer. I can win or lose in a tournament, and no matter what, I want to make this a fun experience for myself,
Right.
and for my opponent.
Yeah.
The guy, you're here to play a game, you're here to have fun, you're here to win as well for most people, but you're also here to have fun. And you're just ruining somebody's tournament experience by doing this.
Yep.
When you start down that road, you start moaning, you start complaining about every die roll.
Right.
It just ruins it for the other guy. I've had it where I was almost cringing every time I rolled a hit
Yeah.
against an opponent because I knew I was going to be moaning about it every time.
Yeah, I have to admit, I had one tournament game where it just bothered me so much, I just gave the guy a 20-0.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just couldn't. So I'd rather go shopping.
Yeah.
I just couldn't take it.
Yeah, but anyway, that's. So I mean, but the like we said though, in a tournament, there's not much you can do. You can walk away. You can give him the 20-0 and walk away. It doesn't do anything. I have played a tournament game against one of these people who is completely not into the game, doesn't care, bad attitude, the whole 9 yards. I've actually gone to the head of that person's club after it, just kind of pulled him aside and just kind of said, hey, this guy over here is a real downer. He's given your club a really bad name.
Yeah.
Because he's played me. I played him and had a bad time. I had another clubmate play him and had a bad time. You guys are getting a really bad name off of this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's another one you can have. There's also the we don't want to maybe questionable moves or cheaters.
Yeah, the guy who's really sloppy in their own moves, and
but very careful.
who
with
tends
yours.
to be very careful about yours. Yeah. Counters everything you're trying to do.
Right.
Or the people that are very creative with their rolls, or I wasn't rolling for that, or the
right. Correct.
Yeah. The die is cocked when it's a 1, but it's not cocked when it's a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually got really careful about that at one point, and I was playing Once Bitten in a game, and he actually got not mad at me. I won't say mad at me, but he actually chided me. He's like, "Look, every time you roll a 6 and it's cocked, you re-roll it, even if it's cocked slightly. But when you're rolling a 1 and it's just cocked slightly, you're not re-rolling them."
Yeah.
He's like, you're doing the wrong. I understand what you're doing, but you're redoing them all the time. So just roll it again.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you've got that.
Well, I had that challenge, and this is not in tournament game. This is more casual gaming. So I got to the point where when I'm playing with a lot of people, I'll just say, if it's not on this this flat area here,
Right.
that I'm re-rolling it. If it ends up in terrain or whatever,
Right.
so they're clear.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll argue, "Oh, you're the one." It's like, yeah, it's over here. As I said, I'm re-rolling everything.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have a discussion about.
The smart thing to do is at the beginning of the game, especially with dice. The smart thing to do is I play flat on the table. If it's flat on the table,
Absolutely.
fine. If it's not flat on the table,
I'm re-rolling it.
re-rolling it, whatever
Absolutely.
it is. The smart thing to do is say that up front.
Absolutely.
Be clear about it. Both players know the
Yep.
deal.
And I think that's the best way.
It is.
The best way to play.
Unfortunately, in a tournament, a lot of times things are moving along and you forget that
Yeah.
until turn 3.
Right.
You're picking up dice and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Yeah, I don't forget usually. But yeah. So I think that to do that. Some people too is how you engage with them.
Right.
If you can be a little lighthearted, you can
Yeah. Kid
make
around
fun at
with
your
it.
at yourself or whatever. Some people you can actually draw them out and
You
they'll
can.
calm down after a while. But some people you can't. But you're in a tournament, you have to decide. You're either gonna muscle. The one thing you have to not do is get upset and
Correct.
get angry, or that's not punching out your opponent's not the way. Before they got a 357 and you're dead. But just you just try to just muscle it through and hopefully
Yeah.
get the game over with.
Get the game over with and move on with your life. However, in our local club, you always have that problem. If somebody shows up and is kind of like you said, like they describe as the toxic player, it tends to there's a couple problems it can cause for the group.
Yes.
I mean, you say originally people start avoiding him. That person stops getting games.
Right.
Is hopefully the answer for that. But
it's not necessarily the answer.
But it's not, because a lot of times...
Because those people tend to be more resilient than people
Correct.
give them credit for.
Yes, and they'll keep showing up and keep showing up.
And all you need is a second one.
Right.
In a group, and before you know it, people stop showing up at your group.
Correct.
Or people start playing on different nights or doing all these things to avoid them.
To avoid those people. And then it can push people away from a message board.
Yep.
Because where you've got a group that posts on a message board, I'm looking for a game Saturday, blah, blah, blah. And now the person you don't want to play is responding, it causes a problem. Then people stop posting on the message board because they don't want to
exactly
do it. And a lot of times people don't want to just say, no, I don't want to play you.
Correct.
I mean, people are tend not to be that blunt most of the time.
But I think it's, frankly, there comes a point when you're in a group, a friendly group, that people, they're your gaming buddies.
Right.
I mean, they don't be your friends, but they're your gaming buddies. That it's easier to have that conversation and say, dude, I really don't want to play you. Just your play style is just rubs me the wrong way. And we neither one's want to have a game that we're not both enjoying. So.
Or at least I don't want to have a game.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to bother you, but
yeah. Well, I mean, how well how blunt you want to be.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, so I think it's a little easier because I've had groups where we've had conversations with people and pushed them away or got them to calm down at least a little
right.
bit. But in a tournament environment, it's a little more difficult.
It is because you can't avoid it.
Yes.
It's a big thing.
And there's. Okay, I didn't play a game against this guy. I played a game against somebody else, or I played another day. It's no big deal. Now I'm in a tournament. In theory, if you're going to a tournament, you're doing it for a couple of reasons. One's usually because you want to do well in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And
nobody goes to a tournament, I think, wanting to lose 5 games.
I don't think anybody wants to go wanting to lose, but I do think there are people that go to tournaments because they don't have a gaming scene themselves. So it's a place to go, to get their games in. So I think those people exist.
There are.
And which is different and then there's people that just go, they want to win, they don't care what it takes to win,
Right.
So it's just different.
It is. I've had a tournament. I mean, I played my games I played almost every tournament in the Mid-Atlantic section. I branched out a little bit, and we have a really good group of people at the tournaments for the most part. I mean, but like you said before, there's always somebody.
Every group's got somebody.
And I actually happened to catch one tournament where I caught 3 out of 5 games against opponents I would rather not play again.
Yeah.
And that's a one-time. At most, I've had one before, just one game before.
Right.
But this was a 3 out of 5, and
it's death, and especially if it hits you on the second day.
And I was like,
when you're tired.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if I'm coming back to the next one.
Yep.
Because this was just brutal. I don't want to deal with this again.
Yep.
But I did, and didn't have a problem. But it turns off your whole tournament experience.
Yeah.
It really does.
Oh, it did to me. I stopped playing
So
singles tournaments.
So I think it's very important for the hobby if people, don't avoid that. Mm-hmm. We've got to do something about people that do this, because you're turning people away.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is. Do you be more honest and actually pull the person aside and talk to them. I don't know.
As I said, I think in the end you have to, but you have to weigh, is it really worth the effort? When you're in a club environment, you've got to take that step forward. If you can't just wait for somebody else to do it. You might put up with it a couple times, but eventually you have to say, hey,
Right.
private conversation. You don't do it. You don't pull them. You don't blast them in front of all your friends.
Don't embarrass them.
Don't embarrass them. That's not cool. You pull them aside and you just have a chat. Say, hey, and maybe they're going to get mad. Maybe they're not. Whatever.
Right. But what's the worst? They get mad.
What's the worst? They get mad. They don't want to
again?
play you anymore. So
Ooh,
exactly.
you
So
won.
so you won anyway. So you're covered. They may try to draw other people in the conversation and whatever. You just have to kind of step. That's why you want to pull them away. But in a tournament. I mean, you can try to be. You can address the person in front of you. Say, hey.
It's just a game. Let's just play through this.
Can we do something different here? Because
Right.
I'm getting the impression that you're really not enjoying the game, and I if you're not enjoying the game, I'm not enjoying the game.
Right.
And I really came here to have fun. Is there anything we can do different to? I love this army.
That's a beautiful army.
Anything we can do
see it
different
again next weekend.
Yeah. That's the best you can do.
Right.
Yeah, I think in a tournament environment.
It is.
Because you have no control over that person.
You don't.
They're just like you. They signed up. They paid their money.
They paid their money. They're there.
They're there to do whatever they came to do. You know.
But I think, and that's why one of the other videos I've seen in the past. Once Bitten did it with the building the tournaments and that type of thing, and he also did a video on the scoring aspects of tournaments.
Yeah.
And
that was going to be my next topic.
The question is sports and paint scorings and how they go into your thing. And that's why I think sports scoring should be a very important and rewarded even more than it is in most tournaments, to encourage that.
I believe that
even if you are an ass, if you know that's going to count for a significant chunk of your points towards winning the tournament, it's going to make you act at least somewhat decent.
you would hope, yeah.
In my opinion.
Some people, they can't help themselves. But
there's some people that can't help themselves as
But
well.
no, I'm actually a believer in a tournament environment that it's not all about generalship.
Right.
I believe in paint scores. I believe in sportsmanship. And
Right.
I agree. I think they all have importance. And to me, they have almost equal importance. The challenge with sportsmanship is how do you score it? So you can make that argue with paint scores too. You find people, they tend to be skewed scores, and
Right.
you want to have you want to get your painting up to a standard, but you don't want an expectation that everyone is top shelf painter. There's only a handful of those.
Right.
The same thing with sportsmanship. Everyone doesn't have to be the friendliest person in the world. But you just want them at least to be friendly.
At least to not bring down somebody else's experience. That's my biggest thing.
Exactly.
You don't have to be joking around with me. You don't have to do anything, but just don't make it a game that I dread playing.
Correct.
Please.
Yeah.
Please, and I'm talking to you, Once Bitten, who I'm playing in the first game this weekend. Just kidding. I've never had a bad game against him.
Well,
anyway.
from that post, you're going to have a bad one that I read. You're going to have a bad one this next one.
Yeah, he's
going to kick your butt.
He's picked me to win my bracket, but he's also said that's going to be despite my first round loss.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to see about that, won't we? Anyway, and that kind of brings us, the next thing along with it. So, paint scoring, sports scoring, I think they're very important. I do think the problem with paint scoring and sports scoring, in the Mid-Atlantic, we do after every game, you get 2 or 1 points. And you have to justify giving opponent 1 point.
Right.
Instead of 2. 2 points is a standard opponent. 1 point is something was wrong. There was a problem, blah, 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 blah. Most people, just as a fact, just do 2 points and move on with it. There's a few times you'll see a 1 point given out, and the judge will pull you aside and ask you why you gave the guy a 1 point.
Right.
Because he wants to know, and for future reference, everything else. But at the end of the day, and then at the end of the tournament, you vote on your two favorite opponents, and they each get an extra point. So the difference between some guy who was a complete dick the whole tournament and some guy who was a fine player and didn't do anything wrong is 5 points.
Right.
Which is nothing. There's no, to me, that's no encouragement not to be.
Out of over 100.
Out of a total of over 100.
Yes.
So you're talking about 5%.
Yes.
To me, it's not counted enough. And the same thing for painting. You know, my army goes up and scores a 15 or a 16 on the painting scale. The best painted army out there gets a 21 or 22. It's so hands down way better than mine, but it's a 6-point difference. It's a 5 or 6 point difference.
Yeah. I'm a little more tolerant of that, just because I think there are artists who can just do amazing things with.
There are.
And I almost would feel that there should be a separate category for the best painted army. I believe in that.
Right, and there is in the Mid-Atlantic.
And I think that's enough.
Oh, okay.
I think to me the paint score is not so much to separate the top guy from the average guy. The paint score is more to raise the average.
Oh, okay.
What I hate seeing is you got some guy who's done the bare freaking minimum.
And then you've got this.
Yeah, exactly. He's done the bare minimum.
Look at that boat.
It says three colors on a figure, and he's got 3 colors on a figure.
Correct.
And there might not be the right, and one of them's black and one of them's silver, because that's and he gets whatever the 12 points, and it's like and the guy who actually did a decent quality job is getting 13
Correct.
points or something. Like, that's not enough to me. What's the point of having that higher standard if you don't give anybody the lower scores? Or
Correct.
I mean, the lowest score you see, guys. I see guys with unpainted armies and they get like 9. It's like, how is that possible? Because they assembled it and primed it.
Well, the problem is, and Chad mentioned this, the one's been mentioned this as well, is most of our tournaments in the Mid-Atlantic, at least, use a what do you call it?
A list. A checklist.
Formula checklist. There's something else.
Yes, I don't like checklists. So.
There's a checklist. So even if I have an unpainted army, well, I've got a display board. It's got my name on
Correct.
it. I've got this, so I get a few points here and there.
Correct.
It's like, and anyway.
No, I don't believe in. I believe in some broad categories to help people know that the things you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't assign specific points to it. You need to have independent judges, whether it's the store owner, or sometimes it's like whoever your best painter is.
Right.
You have them do it.
Correct.
Get a couple people to do it, whatever it is. Get some independent people that have no skin in the game, because the challenge with painting scores is you're trying to take something artistic and you're trying to apply a scientific method to it, and it just
Correct.
doesn't really work because there's just too many considerations.
Right. Like this army should get a bonus for theme just because
Yes.
of the blue-white mix all through the army. It's just...
And he made his own little blimps.
He made his own blimps, which is a special thing.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, I mean, and there's different things, and some things can compensate for other things, but
Right.
I'm sorry, you should never get to the point where the technical things compensate that I have a fully painted army. That should never happen. I don't care if you have a board. I don't care if you have a name tag. I don't care
Correct.
if you put grid on your bases.
If it's not a fully painted army, it's a 0.
It's a 0, yes.
Correct.
You know.
I mean, I guess you could make an exception for a guy who has a model not unpainted, but
Yeah, that's a different thing again. He's got one unit. He's going to take a hit for that. It may not.
Right.
He's not going to get 0 for that. Or
right.
the maybe his movement tray, one movement tray doesn't match or whatever. I mean, yeah, you can recognize those things. Like I said, but that's why it's a balancing act. You have to look at these different things. You have to play judgment. It's like, okay, yeah, he's not quite right here, but these other things are so good, it's actually going to drag
Right.
back up to the middle. But
Yeah.
clearly, that guy that's got that one unpainted unit should never be in the top category.
Correct. He can be. Right.
But in theory, he could. That should never happen.
And the other thing is, I think the best painted question, you should not be able to win best painted without your own army that you painted. I don't think that's a best purchased army.
I tend to agree. It's a hard thing to you require some honesty in that
You
regard.
do. I mean, but I've I've had people come up to me. Actually, in the last tournament I was in, they came up to me at the end of the first day and said, "You want to put your gargantula up there in the best piece,
Right.
tournament thing?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't paint that.
Yeah.
It's I can't. I don't want to put that up
Yeah.
there. I love the model. I think it's fantastic, but again, I didn't do it, so I shouldn't get an reward for it."
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, definitely sports. Sports scores need to have a bigger impact on the tournament and things. I'm not just saying that because I usually do okay in sports, but but I think it's what builds the community by keeping people happy, making people not have a bad tournament experience.
Correct.
It helps in that regard.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say it's going to correct everything, but it definitely helps.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, I think it does. Especially now, because so many tournaments give out so many prizes.
They do.
Well,
the Atomic Empire, the tournaments they have down at the Atomic Empire, they give out a first, second, and third overall, a first, second, and third best general, a first, second, and third sports, best painted, best community voted painted. There's like 11 or 12 awards they give out.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, it's great, and the reason for that is they're collecting all these tournament fees and they're getting the room free. So they've got the money to spread around and give it to as many people as they can. And they have a built-in kind of a home rule thing where you cannot win more than one in a tournament, which is also, I think, a good rule. So that way, best painted, best sports, and best whatever don't all go to one person.
I think you can argue that either way, but
I just think it encourages people if there's multiple prizes and
yeah. Well, I like the idea of having. I would go to the doubles tournament for Flames of War, and what happens there is you get the first three people, they get the top prizes. Everyone walks away with something.
Oh, okay.
It's just how they do it. So I think there's many ways to give prizes. I've been to tournaments where everyone got a mug. There's many ways to give prizes. You don't necessarily have to tie it just to you have to place. Because there's also kind of a weird thing. Okay, I got this prize because the two people above me that should have gotten it got other prizes.
Right.
So I really didn't deserve anything. So
correct. Well, I mean that is a problem with one problem with the Mid-Atlantic tournaments is that a lot of times a guy will get best general. In the Mid-Atlantic, the overall is the top prize.
Right.
First, second, third overall,
and it is in most
are the
tournaments.
top prizes. But then the guy will walk away with best general, and there's 4 guys that scored higher than him in that tournament.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a little bit of an issue, but
and then you can get things like they have like the best army. Well, it just so happens that you were the only guy that showed up at that army, which is one thing.
Well, that's kind of a fun. There's no prizes other than the little banner they pass out for that one. I actually love that award, the best army, best in race award.
I love the concept, and I think it's a neat thing to do. But I hate to see, like I said, the guy that showed up with his unpainted army getting that.
Yeah, but
But
it's fun because the big thing about that one is even if you're out of the running for anywhere near the top table,
sure,
you start looking around. Where are the other orc players?
Yeah.
Can I
you
pass
get that,
this guy?
and it builds a little bit of a competition between you and the other players.
It does, and you start yelling at the guy across the room.
Lose. I like it conceptually. I just think there has to be I'll say a floor that you can't get it if you don't do certain things.
Oh. Okay.
Mostly around sportsmanship and painting.
Yes.
If you got a 0 on any of these things, you're not eligible.
Yeah, that's probably, that probably is a good idea.
Maybe that'll get the point across. It's like, hey, everyone knows I didn't get the prize because.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, that makes it hard for the TO because you got to deal with this.
He's got to deal
acerbic
with
personality.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But once you deal with it once, it should go away. Hopefully. Hopefully.
You can always hope.
Right. Anyway, so that's a little bit about the tournaments. As far as the difference tournament players versus casual players, I don't even know where to go with that one. There's the tournament players tend to be a bit more. They're definitely more knowledgeable.
Yes.
As far as the rules go, in general.
Correct.
because they're the ones that are looking for
They tend to be more focused on that specific game
Correct.
as opposed to general players.
and they tend to know the rules better. They're easier to,
Right.
in general, easier to play because you don't have to.
Because you're in a
Explain
tournament, tournaments tend to draw better players.
They do.
And the more you play, against better players, the better you become. So, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas casual players, I mean, I have both players in our group. We have both players in our area in our group.
Yes.
And you tend to. The problem is when I'm getting ready, trying to get ready for a tournament, I'm trying something different or changing my list a little bit, and I want a few practice games on it. There are players I don't want to play because of that,
Right.
because I know I'm not going to get a challenging game out of them.
Oh, that's why we haven't played in a while.
That's why I haven't played you in years. You're looking for a challenging game that can show you something about your army list or whatever the holes in it are. Or what unfortunately, people point out all the holes in my army list, and I ignore them and keep going.
Yeah.
But that's the idea behind it, at least. Whereas if I know I'm playing a casual player, then I'll have a completely different list. You'll see my giant come out.
Right.
You'll see all kinds of weird things show up because it's a fun game.
Yeah.
Trying to play a game.
I mean,
for
how many
fun.
times we'd show up and it's like, need 1,500 points, just throw together.
Right.
It's now 3,000, but throw together a list real quick. It's got all kinds of. It fits, so that's what you play with.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't really see the difference, the big split difference between tournament players and casual players. Other than really that, I mean,
me, the big difference is your ability, how you can confront them.
how you can confront them.
Yeah, how you deal with them.
Oh, right. If there's a bad, you're talking about in the instance of a toxic, what they call it toxic.
Correct.
Well, I mean, just in general, the tournament players versus the casual player. Like again, the tournament players are more serious about it typically.
Yes.
They tend not. Most of the tournament players I know tend not to be outside of a tournament. And I'll play a different game when I'm in a tournament.
Right.
I'll play a more serious game in a tournament than I will outside of a tournament. I'm still not. I still going to do my best not to be a dick about it, and make the game unpleasant for my opponent. And I pride myself when I think I pull that off. But I won't. In a casual game, somebody does something that's this is 12 inches. No, it's 14. It's 13. It's 13. Okay, fine, whatever. Let's just play. It's 13. I missed my charge. Okay. In a tournament, you kind of all right. Look, let's call somebody else over and look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Right.
That's that's the difference in me when I'm playing a tournament versus a normal game. I tend to, in a normal game, just let things go and keep things moving.
Right.
It's not important. And in a tournament, if I'm down on a lower table towards the end of the tournament, I'll tend to slip more into the casual mode as well.
Well, I think it's harder because there are consequences to losing the game.
Right. But I don't like to do that, but I will in a tournament because I don't like to reinforce that in my opponents.
Right.
I don't like to reinforce their behavior.
Right.
In the game.
Yeah.
But it happens. There's not much you can do about it.
No.
But anyway, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think we
Run it down.
beat that horse to death.
We did.
I think I stopped listening about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, probably. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I've got a tournament coming up this weekend. We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
You can see everybody yelling at me.
Right, we can try our techniques. I suggest we don't post this until after the tournament.
Don't post until after the tournament so they don't know this?
Yeah.
No, I'm posting this. I'm going to make sure this gets
Actually,
up
no,
before
you're in a
the
tournament. No, go ahead and post it. I'm going to enjoy hearing the
Yeah, thank you.
the pushback.
Yeah. So, there's a couple guys in this room that are going to push back against me right there. See them all?
Yeah.
See them all? The guy right there? Oh, too bad. The guy there in the middle. I won't say who his name was, but no. The one thing I will say about tournament, I saw a lot of things posted about tournaments versus casual play and everything else, and a lot of people were saying I actually see a lot of camaraderie in the tournament play.
Right.
And there's a lot of rivalry built in stuff. There's a local guy in the tournaments who shows up at almost every tournament I'm at, who we have kind of a rivalry thing going. We'll laugh at each other and joke with each other between each game. How'd you do? I'm ahead of you. Good. I'm get to duck you again. I'm not playing you this time.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of that. The clubs in our area are great.
Yes.
There's I'm in CGL. We have a kind of a recent ongoing rivalry with the Columbia Misfires a club out of South Carolina. We're 8 hours apart. We never see each other outside of the tournaments.
Right.
But we have a great rivalry going on between them because me and the other guys from that club will get together after each round. How are we doing? How's our club doing versus yours?
Right.
Tally it up and whatever. And then on Saturday, after the tournament on Saturday, we'll all end up together in the same place drinking and having a great time, laughing and joking with each other. So I think that's important. I think the club rivalries are awesome.
I do think that is a way.
As long as you're not taking it too far.
Yeah. I also think it can be a way in a tournament environment, if you keep seeing the same people, to calm down some of the toxic players.
Yeah, it could be, yes.
Because some people, they're introverted or whatever, once they get to know people better, they're less likely to be
That's true.
To watch my explicit language here. Can I say it in German? Maybe they won't recognize.
Yeah, there you go. Do that. That'll work fine.
But so sometimes when you get to know people, they get a little calmer. They don't get quite as uptight when they're they give you more the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Anyway, that guy's a problem too.
Which one?
The one on the upper right. I want to be specific about that.
Because he has very loud battle reports?
He has very loud battle reports. He's very loud in the game.
And he has the gall to be another orc player.
He's another orc player. We need to smack him down. My guy Joey let me down. Anyway. I guess that's it for now.
Till next time.
Thanks for listening.